I've actually been calling this an Israel-Iran war for over a year. Um, the fact that Israel's been fighting proxies like Hezbollah and Hamas, and even taking inbound rockets directly from Iran, shows who is the true aggressor in Israel's eyes. So the fact that they decided to bomb them again in June, actually break sovereign borders and yet again incur into Iran, was not a surprise to me. In fact, about 4 months ago, intelligence analysts worldwide were kind of estimating it was going to be late June, early July when Israel launched an attack specifically against the nuclear infrastructure in Iran.
So then, why was Iran caught by surprise? Because there's no way they weren't. All their commanders, their military commanders, were hit. All their nuclear facilities were hit, and it took them a long time to respond.
I would say it didn't take them that long to respond. If you recall, there were rockets that were being launched back into Israel by the hundreds within just a few hours of the strike. There was a surprise element because nobody knows what day, what time, and what locations will be hit. That's part of what intelligence is supposed to cover. And Iran's intelligence is strong, but it's obviously not as strong as Israel, especially considering the fact that Israel's partners in this are the United States and some of the other Western allies. So they didn't know which facilities, they didn't know what day, they didn't know what time, they didn't know which officers might be targeted. So that was Israel's advantage. And Israel understood that the longer they waited, the more they risked losing that advantage of surprise.
Yeah, and I think Netanyahu was, there were reports that his son was about to have a wedding. So I think Iran would have assumed Netanyahu was going to his son's wedding. Also, Trump was hinting at negotiations for Sunday, and there were reports, apparently leaks, that Trump told Israel not to respond militarily. I think also there were reports that Netanyahu was meant to go on a holiday, or no, meant to go on a trip to the US for negotiations. So you think all those were intentional to mislead Iran?
I don't think all of them were intentional. I think that there was a bit of geopolitical positioning that we saw play out here, Mario. The United States was about to have their 250th anniversary parade, a parade down Washington, D.C., something that was very high profile. Trump was very focused on it. It was supposed to be like this, rah, 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 America anniversary of 250 years of the existence of the Army. And that was scheduled for Saturday. So Trump was very focused in one area, plus he was planning on having negotiations start again on Sunday. So you could see that Netanyahu's timing showed that he was not necessarily going to kowtow to the West. He was not going to obey Donald Trump's direction. He was going to demonstrate his own unilateral power and decision-making power. So I think that played into part of it, as well as Netanyahu's own personal schedule, where he wanted to make sure that a message was sent in a time that was convenient for his leadership, not a time that was convenient for the West.
Oh, wow. So you think Israel acted without America's permission?
I don't know that they acted without America's permission, but I would say that they didn't have America's full support. I think Israel's playing a very interesting game here that on one hand is very strategic, but on the other hand is also very risky. Netanyahu is consistently expanding his conflict area. What used to be a conflict with just Hamas in just Gaza has now turned into a conflict with Hezbollah. He's taken ground in Syria. He's launched multiple airstrikes now into Iran. He has pushed land troops into Iran. And Israel and Iran are not geographic neighbors. They have to go through other territory to get to each other. So you've got this situation where Netanyahu understands he's unpopular at home and he's unpopular abroad. But by taking the fight to Iran, he gets to win back some favor from the West because the United States likes the idea of a weak Iran. Saudi Arabia and UAE like the idea of a weak Iran. So you've got this situation where Israel can kind of win back favor by doing what it already wants to do.
Did you misspeak when you said Israel sent personnel into Iran? Do you mean the Mossad commanders, that the rumors that were within Iran? So you think Israel has? I'd love to. That's one of my next question. Is like, how did Israel do this? How did Israel get? Well, there's reports of a drone factory, not only drone trucks, but a drone factory within Iran. I'm not sure if that's accurate or that's way too far fetched. But of course, the trucks. Just a couple of hours ago, Iran says they intercepted another drone truck, Israeli drone truck. Just take us down that rabbit hole of how these things work, how long it takes to plan them, and how realistic are they? It seems like a Bond movie right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the things that makes Mossad so unique among intelligence services worldwide is they really are like a Bond movie. The reason Mossad is so dangerous is because they plan operations many years in advance, and they put them on a shelf just in case they ever need to execute them. And Mossad has what's known in the intelligence world as a high risk tolerance. A high risk tolerance means it will take operations, it will take actions that other countries would never dream to take because the risk is too high. The risk of blowback, the risk of discovery, the risk of death, the risk of capture. Mossad takes risks that nobody else takes, and as a result of that, they get this reputation of being like spies in the movies. So to answer your question, Mario, about how this takes place, I mean, the short answer is Mossad has been targeting Iran for decades. Ever since Israel said, or I'm sorry, ever since Iran made it common knowledge that its goal was to eradicate Israel, Israel started making plans to eradicate Iran. So they have all these plans on a shelf. They just have to choose which plan they're going to pull off the shelf, and it's like a recipe, which plan they're going to take, and then which plan they're going to develop and actually start to create. Do I believe they made a drone factory? No. Do I believe that they had the ability to launch drones from within Iran's borders? Absolutely.
How does that compare to what happened in Russia, the Ukrainian operation?
So that's a great point. Are you talking about the Russia invasion of Ukraine, or are you talking about Ukraine?
No, the Ukraine drone operation a couple of weeks ago, having trucks of drones within Russia, and that was a very successful operation. Do you think Mossad copied that operation? Do you think there was intelligence sharing? Obviously, a weaker Iran means a weaker Russia. And how similar are these two operations?
So I would say that there are many similarities that are superficial. They're both drone operations. They're both drone operations launched from within a sovereign border. They're both modern day warfare that we've never seen before. So you've got a number of similarities there. In one case, I would say Mossad was carrying out a series of operations that were against high value targets that were high profile intentionally. Where what you have with Ukraine and what you continue to see with Ukraine is that Ukraine will launch drones. They will try to take out assets that are strategically relevant, but they don't necessarily try to go for headline damage like you see with Israel.
Yeah, that was crazy. You got the IRGC commander, the chief of staff of the Iranian armed forces, the senior IRGC commander and commander of the Qatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters. You got the commander of the IRGC Airspace Force. And the list goes on. Senior advisor, that's a big one. Senior advisor to Iran's supreme leader and the chief nuclear negotiator, which is a weird one to target if they're looking for some sort of deal with the US, because Trump is saying he would like a deal with Iran, but then the chief negotiator has just been assassinated. You've got the deputy chief of staff of intelligence affairs of the armed forces general staff. So essentially, when I spoke to the IDF spokesperson, he said they assassinated 15 out of 20, and that was yesterday. I think another 2 got assassinated after my interview with him. So I'd say 17 out of 20 senior commanders and 9 out of 11 nuclear scientists. The level of success is unheard of. I haven't seen it in any other. Is there anything you can compare it to? And what does that say about Israel's capabilities?
So the only thing you can compare this to is other Israeli strikes. And Israel has demonstrated this kind of success all through the 2000s and the 90s, where it goes in and it targets individuals of high position or unique position very specifically with very little collateral damage. It's quite shocking how well they execute their series of attacks. I also want to highlight, though, Mario, your verbiage is exactly correct. What Israel is doing is a series of assassinations. In order for something to be an assassination, it has to be politically motivated. Israel was never under attack from Iran. Iran was not aggressing Israel directly, right? There's a larger conflict going on through proxy players, without a doubt. However, what's known as interstate war, or between two different countries, this idea of interstate war was not occurring. There was no invasion of Israel by Iran. There was no invasion of Iran by Israel until this attack, right? This attack showed both ground forces and air forces and other forces as well that were all being used to threaten Iran's sovereignty. So that act of war is now something the whole world has to kind of chew on and deal with because it was instigated by Israel.
So I wanted to ask you more questions on how you think Mossad were able to achieve these attacks. A bit more speculation there, but a piece of news just came in the wire just now, about 1 minute ago. Iran ready to abandon enrichment if it can save face. That's according to the Iran Wire. Not sure how legitimate that is, but the team posted on my account saying a senior Iranian diplomat has told Iran Wire what many suspect but no one had confirmed. Tehran is prepared to halt uranium enrichment, not out of goodwill, but to avoid collapse. Iranian diplomat said the following: the real priority of the supreme leader is survival. We don't want to repeat Saddam Hussein's mistake. Israel's strikes have shattered Iran's military command, scorched neighborhoods across Tehran, and pushed the regime to the brink. The diplomat warned the IRGC is losing control and morale is cracking. But Tehran isn't begging, it wants a deal, not a surrender photo op. Mr. Trump may be the only person who can end this quickly and peacefully, according to the diplomat speaking to Iran Wire. That's a pretty shocking revelation, if true. Shocking to an extent. I think we've seen the devastation that Israel's caused Iran. I did have analysts yesterday and the day before. I've had Scott Ritter and Colonel McGregor, who kind of disagreed with many, thinking Iran still has a lot of capabilities and does not need to kowtow to Israel. But if this report is true, and I want to get your thoughts on it, that could change things. So first, do you think this report is true? Iran is in such a position where it's looking at survival rather than continuing the war and trying to keep its uranium enrichment? And number two, if this is true, do you think Israel would be open to a deal?
The question of whether or not Israel's open to a deal, I think, is the truly operative question here, because I think the whole world is wondering what Israel is after. Are they trying to destroy Iran? Are they trying to destroy Iran's nuclear capability? Is Netanyahu just trying to continue to create conflict so that he doesn't have to deal with his own criminal trial in Israel? We're not exactly sure what Israel's goal is. But I will say this, that the sentiment that was shared in that clip, that review that you just gave, that sentiment is most likely true. That the theocracy understands that they are in danger of a potential of losing too much face, even possible internal uprising or internal conflict. So they want to try to find a way to survive. That I'm surprised that they would make that a public statement, because that makes Iran look weak. That makes the theocracy look weak. I can't imagine that's what they want internal Iranians to think. I'm also wondering if that isn't a piece of disinformation, where Iran wants a break. They want to regroup so that they can direct their capability more effectively, because they were caught by surprise in terms of timing and attack vector. So Iran understands that if they had a few weeks, a few days, a few months, they might be able to set a counterbalance, a counterattack back against Israel, but they can't seem to get that right now. And they don't know when this is going to end. They don't know when Israel will stop increasing their strategic airstrikes. They don't know when the press of Israeli attack is going to actually slow down.
And by the way, if you see me looking down, I was just looking at the news coming in. There's a lot of reports now of strikes happening in Tehran. Also, that's another interesting point. I'd love to get your thoughts on it. That's according to Israel Today, that Israel could be looking at targeting Iran's state TV headquarters. So that's something you talk a lot about, the information warfare that's happening. So Iranians still trust their national TV a lot more than other countries. How effective will such an attack be if they do strike Iran's state TV headquarters?
First of all, if they attack the state TV headquarters, they're attacking a civilian target. And I'm not convinced that the story here is Iran at all, because what's really interesting is how the world's going to respond to Israel. Israel attacking nuclear warheads, everybody can support that. And Israel attacking military targets, everybody can support that. To a certain extent, I think people are looking past the fact that Israel's also attacking and killing civilians through political assassination, like the engineers and the scientists that we've talked about. But if Israel starts to just launch and blow up infrastructure that has to do with media, that's not a military target. Remember how the world responded when Russia started targeting energy facilities in Ukraine, and they started calling that a war crime, and they started calling that a step too far or some sort of non-military target. Russia at least could stand on the fact that that Ukraine was using the energy infrastructure to launch counterattacks against Russia. There's no way that you can say that a TV channel is being used to militarily launch counterattacks against a military target. So the question becomes, how will the world react to Israel's choices in this conflict against Iran?